searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied right here in your love. Come on, let's testify and sing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. He's the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing that's better than you. There's nothing, for nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing, nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, for nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You turn beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Let's sing that again. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. For you're the only one who can. Come on, you turn graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Yes, you are. You're the only one who can. For there's nothing that's better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Let's sing that again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing, for nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to
am thrilled to be here. If you don't know me, I'm Malcolm McPhail. I'm pastor of New Hope Community Church in Gilroy, California. You guys probably know my wife, Kathy, right? She's been up here a couple of times with the women, I believe. And Coco and I and my wife and Lynn, we worked together on the same staff at the same church 40 years ago. I know, I hate saying that. But you know what? We're still close friends. And Coco is he's my end times guru. He's the guy I call when something happens in the middle of it. Coco, what's going on? And he gives me like a history lesson. It's like an hour. And I'm like, I just wanted to know what was going on real quick. And he's just going and going. You can just tell he gets all pumped up over everything that's going on. And truly, we are looking at what I think is kind of like the beginning of the last days. I mean, stuff is happening fast. And I saw Coco was going to teach on Ezekiel. And I mean, only a guy like Coco can get deep into Ezekiel. It's just so much stuff in there. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm glad to be with you today. Coco and I have been friends all these years. He's been a big support of me, and I hope I've been a big support of him. Our kids know each other. Our kids were raised together for a few years, but throughout the years, they've all stayed in touch. So I just feel like I'm at my sister church this morning. So I'm so glad you're here. If I could just speak Spanish, I mean, Gilroy's 60% Mexican. And so in the city, 60% Mexican, 40% Anglo. And so I eat very good in my town. So I'm constantly having to work on starving myself after a good meal. So I want to say thank you for coming, and I'm just privileged to be here. It's always a huge privilege to speak in another pastor's church, you know? And it's a confidence booster, and it's just a privilege that he would allow me to share my heart with you and trust me to share my heart with you. And so you have a good pastor. You have a great church here that I've noticed so far. And I'm just really thankful for Pastor Coco and what he's meant to our family and what he means to you as well. He's the real deal, right? He really is, and I really appreciate that. He walks his talk and he talks the walk, and he's able to walk that out in so many of our lives, and it's God's gift to us, really, to all of us who know him and get to spend time with him. I want to share with you today a little bit about the great prophet Elijah. It's going to come out of 1 Kings chapter 17, and we're going to look at what I'm calling a defining moment. That there are defining moments in all of our lives that help shape us, guide us, direct us, and God's hand reminds us of that defining moment, sometimes in dark times, sometimes in good times, just remembering what God has done. But every one of you probably have had moments in your life that I would call defining moments. And so let's just say globally, I think we all went through a defining moment in 2020, right? All of us. I mean, it's like, no, was that before COVID or after COVID, right? We all kind of think that. Before that, it was that was a global defining moment. Then we had a national one in the United States in 2001, the 9/11, 2001. Everybody remembers it. You know where you were. You know where you were sitting. You remember what you were doing when terrorism hit our nation in a huge way. Other than Pearl Harbor, that was the largest attack that the United States has ever felt since 1941. That's a defining moment before the Twin Towers went down. Then there's personal moments that happen. A defining moment would be graduating from high school. Graduating from college, you remember that day? It was a big moment in our lives, and it changed. Was that before high school, after high school, before college, after? All of these, how about a defining moment? You remember your marriage. You remember your marriage day. Now, you may forget all your anniversaries, but you do remember that day. That was a big day. You brought somebody else in your life, and you learned something, especially if you're a man. You learned that it's not all about me anymore. Hello, men. And you learned how to share your life And sometimes that's a little bit tough. There were times I remember when I first got married, one of my buddies would call up and say, hey, stop by after work. I want to show you something. Well, 3 hours later, I'd get home because I just forgot there's somebody at home. I didn't know it. I was newly married. So I'm hanging out with my friends, and she's going, what are you doing? I'm sitting here all by myself. So we learn those things. Defining moments. You see, God is always moving us from our comfort zone into the character zone, where he can mold us, shape us, guide us, and change us into the person he wants us to be. He's always kind of raising the bar of our Christianity, and sometimes it takes a defining moment for that to happen. So let's get into the context. The nation of Israel is divided. There's a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. Elijah is the prophet of the northern kingdom, and he's serving a very, very evil king named Ahab. You remember Ahab and Jezebel. Well, now you know who he is. He was hanging out with Jezebel, wrong woman. All the kings for the last 200 years had been evil, and because of that, they were worshiping other gods. There was idolatry going on, and all of us fight forms of idolatry and self-worship and are worshiping our things today. These evil kings were actually, though, drawing people away from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These were the gods of Baal and the gods of Asherah, which practiced sacrificing their children to their gods, as well as the priests would go into the temples and actually practice prostitution and sexual perversion, and they would call it worship. Evil. Dark times in the nation. Major scandals. Scripture says, under Ahab's reign, he was more evil than anyone before him. Dark times, difficult times. And God finally said, enough. Enough is enough. Sometimes when we get lost in sin, we get lost in self, God will give you a defining moment and say, enough. Enough of self, enough of sin, enough of what you're doing. I'm going to get you and I'm going to shake you, and it's going to be a defining moment in your life. And Elijah would be going through a defining moment in his life. This is the chapter 17 of 1 Kings, verse number 1. This is the first time Elijah shows up in Scripture. This is first mention. Elijah comes on the scene, and he gives, by the way, I'll tell you about the eye in a few minutes. You're probably looking at me going, what happened to his eye? So I'll tell you about that as we kind of move forward. So now Elijah, the Tishbite from Tishbe, he says who he is. He shows up out of nowhere to Ahab. He just says, hey, I'm Elijah. I'm a Tishbite. I'm from Tishbe. And it's like me saying, hey, I'm Pastor Malcolm. I'm from Gilroy. And I'm here to share with you. And so as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, he says to Ahab, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. Wow. Now, interestingly, you would think Ahab would be mad because this prophet Elijah just got in his face. And Ahab is probably like, okay, game on. Me against God? Okay, game on. Let's go at it. Let's see who wins this one. Instead of Elijah sticking around, though, God sends him away. God takes him and sends him away. And today, think about this. God does not raise up an army to stand against an evil king. God instead raises up a person. You would think God would raise up a troop of soldiers that were loyal to him and say, go take that guy out. Nope. He raises up one man, a prophet. And today I think God still desires to raise you up and to raise people up in your life. People up that you're going to be able to speak to, that you're going to be able to touch. Maybe that defining moment is today where a young man or a young boy who stands up for sexual purity in a promiscuous culture. Maybe a businessman who walks in integrity in his business and walks according to the word of God. Maybe it's maybe it's a politician who actually stands for truth and common sense in our lives. Maybe something going on, a student who starts a Bible study on his campus. Maybe that's that one person, a person to go and make a difference in a defining moment in the lives of people they impact. Maybe God wants to raise you up. One person. We are all just one person, but God can use one person to change generations. You see, Elijah shows up and he drops a bomb on Ahab. See, this was a national this was a national defining moment. This was a huge strategic move on God's part. This was so huge that it was going to affect the entire nation, because it's more than just a recession. It's more than just an economic downturn. It's an absolute shutdown of the entire economy of the nation of Israel. Because in an agricultural-driven culture, if there's no rain and there's no crops, there's no business going on. There's no selling crops, raising crops, eating from crops. It's a modern-day equivalent to no gas. The banks aren't lending money. In fact, the banks don't even have any money. The money that you placed in the bank is probably gone. That's what it would be like today. You can't even get your own money out. There's no electricity. People are starving. People are dying. Unemployment's at 70 to 80%. There's no gas for you to go to get to your job so you can try to make some money, because there's no money to make at your job anyway. And it's a downturn. It's a complete disaster for the nation of Israel. So this prophet stands face to face with this king, said, no rain, God says, because God says so. No rain, because God says so. We want you to know who God is. And so the battle's on. Let's fight it out. You see, then God does something really weird. God takes Elijah away. He takes him away and he removes him from the scene completely. And he sends him away. Why? Because he wanted to isolate Elijah so that he could do so much more, something more deep in him, so that he eventually could do so much more through him. See, God may send you through seasons of isolated pain. And that's my first point. Isolated pain. Elijah went through a season. He went through 3 seasons of preparation. It might apply to you and I today. Number 1 is a season of isolated pain. Verse number 1, again, we just read. Let's go to verse number 2. Elijah shows up in verse number 1 and says, no rain. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, and here's what God told him to do next. Next one. Leave here, go to the east, and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan. He's isolating him. He's telling him to go hide out, because no doubt Ahab was probably putting out a hit list, and Elijah was on the hit list. And so God says, I want you to go there because I'm going to isolate you, and I'm going to do some things in you so that I can eventually do some things through you that are going to change the nation I've given you. Elijah is taken to a place all by himself, to a place called the Kerith ravine. The Kerith ravine is a Hebrew, the Hebrew words for the Kerith ravine is, Kerith means cut off or cut down, and the word picture that goes around that is similar to that of somebody chopping down a tree. You see, God was going to cut him off from all other relationships. He was going to cut him off from all the other props in his life, and he was going to cut him down till he could later build him up. Sometimes God isolates us so he could rebuild us and renew us and restore us in areas that maybe we haven't totally given to him. He says, it was God who was saying, I'm going to cut you down. I'm going to humble you. I'm going to teach you total dependence on me. You see, when we have our friends around us or our family around us, or all of those other things that we've grown dependent on, our jobs, our careers. Sometimes we go through defining moments in our life where we go through trials and tests and difficulties because God's trying to get you to a place where he could do something so much more in you, and he may take you down a season of isolation and a season of pain in your life so that he can get our attention, do something deeper, and rebuild our lives to go back and make a difference to others in our lives. Some of us need a Kerith ravine. Some of us need that time of separation. Maybe it's a time of hurt. Maybe it's a time of disappointment. Maybe people are, when you say and you're praying, you're believing for that financial miracle or that marriage miracle or that relationship miracle that's been broken down, or the marriage and the family are struggling and there's all kinds of conflict going on. Maybe God's going to separate you and he's going to get you to a place where even you're so isolated that you feel like your prayers aren't being heard, and you're saying, okay, where are you, God? Where are you? Okay, I'm here now. Where are you? I need you to give me direction and to give me guidance. I need healing. I need deliverance from that addiction, that habit, that thing that keeps cycling in my life that takes me down a wrong road. I need deliverance and victory in this area of my life. And God may be building a defining moment in your life where you are able to work on those things just with God. And so we say things like, God, where are you? Doesn't seem. Have you ever been through a situation and God did not seem to give you an answer, and it took forever to get that answer? Like you would pray and you would believe and you're all full of faith, and then weeks go by, months go by, difficulties take place, and God hasn't shown up yet. And that's what he did with Elijah. He took him to a place to where he would learn how to depend only on God. God took me to that place. And I don't think cancer came from God at all. But I was in that place where I could only depend on him. Let me tell you that story. I was 36 years old. I had just started pastoring my church in Gilroy, California. It's the 1990s, early 1990s. And I was lots of vision, lots of dreams. I'm pastoring, working hard. I have 4 children. My wife is 30-something years old, 32. She's a few years younger than me. And I have 4 wonderful kids, 8, 6, 4, and 2. And life is going good. I mean, the church is starting to change. And we took a church that was dying, and we started rebuilding. We started getting out in the community. We started working with the poor, the homeless, and those that were struggling. We started working with different sports programs. I started working, I'm a police chaplain and I'm a fire chaplain. I started working with police and fire. We started just immersing. I trained the church, immerse yourselves in the community. It's all about reaching the community. That's our mission here. And we began, and I'm excited. I'm going for it, and I'm raising my kids. We're doing sports. I coach soccer. I coached them all until they were about 10, and then they needed a real coach. And then we were going well, and so this one day a guy calls me up and says, hey, you want to go, I want you to come speak at one of our youth camps for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And he said, hey, I'm over in Monterey. Why don't you come down and we'll play a round of golf. I was a golfer. We'll play a round of golf, and we'll go have lunch, and we'll set up the whole camp and talk about it while we're playing and while we're eating. So I go down there. About halfway through the golf game, I start feeling something coming out of my belly button. And I'm thinking, what in the world? That kind of hurts. I touch it, go, that kind of hurts. What's sticking out of my belly button? And the guy looks down, and I'm with you, he goes, oh, you got a hernia. That's a hernia. People get hernias. They come right out. The belly button's an unprotected area. It pops right out there. I said, oh, really? He goes, wow. He goes, well, you probably ought to go get that checked out. You want to quit after 9 holes? We were at nine holes. I said, oh, no. I'll just push it back in, and we'll finish the game. That was important to me. And I did win, by the way. But all of a sudden, I'm driving up. I stopped, called my wife, and back then I didn't have a cell phone. Called my wife and said, hey, I'm just going to drive straight up to San Jose Kaiser, and I'm going to go get him to check this thing. So I walk in, the guy looks at it, doctor, yeah, you got a hernia. So I go upstairs, take a blood test, come back down. We'll do a procedure and get a net or whatever they put in there. We'll do a procedure so it doesn't happen again, and you'll be good to go in 2 or 3 hours. So I go up, take the blood test, come back down. About 15 minutes after I'm sitting in the room by myself, 4 doctors walk in. And I said, oh, for a hernia? And the guy says, hey, he goes, couple questions. He goes, have you had night sweats lately? And I said, night sweats? Well, now that you mention it, yeah. I wake up sweating at night, soaking wet. And I think I just attributed it to an allergy. I just attributed it to maybe I got a bug, maybe I got a flu bug or something. And so I just kept working and kept going. And then he said, hey, have you noticed, have you felt lots of fatigue lately that you never felt before? And I said, yeah, pretty much. I do feel a little bit more tired. I'm working hard. I got 4 kids under 8. And yeah, working hard. I got a very energetic wife, working hard. And so he goes, and I remember I played golf one day, and I always walked to get my exercise in, and about hole number 12, I couldn't finish. I was completely, I must have the flu. I must have a flu bug. And so a few weeks later is when I was diagnosed. And he said, unfortunately, we're 99% sure you have a blood disease called leukemia. Well, back then, leukemia was incurable, because his next words were this. I said, okay, what does that mean? He says, well, people that have your type of adult leukemia in their 30s have about 2 years to live, and there's no cure. 2 years to live, no cure. By then, my wife had come up, because I told her about the 4 doctors. The doctor came back in, and I said, tell us everything. And so he said, well, basically, there's no cure for this type of leukemia, adult leukemia. For the kids at the time, it was about a 50% cure for childhood leukemia. But for adult leukemia, there was no cure, 2 years to live. We'll try a couple of experiments. Good luck. And by the way, he said, you'll never have a bone marrow transplant. Because he had asked me earlier, do you have any relatives? Do you have any children? Any relatives, any brothers, any sisters, anybody, cousins, family? I go, no. I was picked up on the streets of San Francisco at the age of 9, placed in a boys' institution. My parents were severe alcoholics and basically destroyed their liver at a young age. I was on the streets running all the time. They took me from the family and stuck me in juvenile hall for 6 months, decided what to do with me. I went to a boys' institution in Sonoma County called Hannah Boys Center, and I was taken out of Hannah's at about 11 and a half and placed in a foster home. And by the grace of God, I got a good foster home, and they're my mom and dad to this day. But I have no relatives. He said, listen, you're never going to have a bone marrow transplant. You don't have anyone that could match you. So I thought, okay, can you give me some hope? So, he said, well, we'll try a couple experiments, see what happens. So they put me on a drug called interferon. I was sick every single day. Chills at night, fevers at night, woke up in the morning with feeling like I had the flu, just struck every bone in my body. This drug was really radical. So I'd take my Tylenol, I'd get up, pray, spend time with God, say, God, I'm not going to die from cancer. I'm going to live through cancer. And so I went and I started working, coached soccer, did everything I did, and they began to give me this experimental drug. And like I said, it made me sick every day of my life. You see, I was at a place during this whole time where I'm saying, God, where are you? Because year 1 went by, year 2 went by, year 3 went by. I made it an extra year according to them. I'm living anxiously. I'm living by faith at the same time. Anxiousness, fear, faith. I'm depending on what I was thinking about and everything that I went through. I'm like, God, what's happening? I'd find myself planning my funeral, and then I'd say, no, God, you gave me life and life more abundantly. You've promised me life till an old age. I'm praying for old age life. And I'd switch my brain, Get out of the funeral, get into life, right? What does the Bible say? Take captive every thought and bring it unto obedience of Christ. Why? I had to renew my mind constantly because a spirit of death was trying to kill me. You see, anytime God had just given me the vision and the dream for the local church and for that community, anytime God gives you a vision, anytime God gives you a dream for your family, your career, your job, your life, anytime God gives you a picture of what he wants you to do and where he wants you to go, there will always be an enemy try to come in at the inception of that vision and destroy it. When God raised up Moses to bring a vision of freedom to the Egyptians, to the Israelites in Egypt for 400 years, what happened? The Pharaoh said, kill all the babies. At inception, when Jesus came along, what did King Herod say? Kill all the children under 2 years old. Anytime God raises up a prophet, raises up a man, raises up a vision, raises up a dream, you have to guard it with prayer, and you have to guard it with warfare against what the enemy is going to try to, he's going to try to steal that vision from you. Tries to kill it. And so God's telling Elijah, I'm preparing you for something, and I think he was trying to prepare me for something just as he's trying to prepare you to be that person that is going to allow God, and allow a defining moment to change your life. Let me drink here. Now, because God's saying I'm doing something in you, because I want to do something through you. And sometimes God purposely makes you wait so he can get a hold of you and speak to you. He has to get you to a place, sometimes you and I, because I was feeling pretty good about myself, just as we all do. We feel good about ourselves. We provide, we work, we maintain our lives, just living. And we have people around us, yes, that support us, and they're our props, and they're taking care of us. And then something happens, and you have no control over it. In your family, in your life. Maybe you've gotten so far into sin, you don't even realize that it's controlling you. You're not controlling it. Maybe you've cycled so much in the same emotional and chronic emotional trends in your life and psychological trends in your life. Maybe your marriage is constantly cycling. Oh, you do good for 6 weeks or 6 months or even for 2 years. And then all of a sudden you hit it. You're right back where you were cycling 2 years ago or 6 months ago. The same argument, the same difficulty. That has to be broken. And there has to be a defining moment that says, this must break. And God will do anything he can to get you to that place where he can break you down. The river, the Kerith River, the Kerith Ravine, God was going to break Elijah down to where he could only depend on him. And that's point number 2. It's a season of total dependence. See, when you have no control, he's in control. And maybe some of you have been to a place where you've had no control. I'll tell you more in a minute. Verse number 4. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there. God's saying, hey, even though you're in isolation, even though you're in pain, even though you feel like your prayers are hitting the sky and bouncing back down, even though you're praying and saying, God, where are you? I need a miracle. I need a miracle in my marriage. I need a miracle in my family. I need a miracle in my children. I need a miracle in my grandchildren. I need a miracle on my job with my finances. I need a miracle with my health, any chronic sickness or disease. God, where are you? Even though Elijah was isolated in pain, God was right there, and he was providing all his needs. So he did what the Lord told him. He went to the ravine east of the Jordan, and he stayed there. Verse number 6. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. You see, it was a place of total and complete dependence on God. There was nobody else there to do the cooking. They're in a huge drought, a huge downturn in the, not downturn, economic crisis. And God says, hey, go over here. I got water and I got food for you. I'll take care of you. See, Elijah was learning some lessons here. God was bringing about a miracle to take care of him in the middle of the drought. In the middle of an economic disaster, God sends birds and ravens to feed him meat and in the morning and in the evening. What was God doing? He was clearly saying, no matter what and always, I will be faithful to you. You can always count on me to provide. He's teaching him a lesson. Teaching him a lesson. You can always count on me to provide. You see, we kept hearing, my wife and I kept hearing, no cure, no healing. I took a blood test 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I'd take it in the morning. I'd call up to Kaiser in the afternoon, and I would say, what's it look like? Give me the report. And they would tell me, you still have leukemia, nothing's changed, no cure, there's nothing we can do, but we'll keep checking and looking to see if we can figure out an answer for you. Finally, Kaiser, I confronted him. I said, listen, this thing can accelerate at any day now. I'm living day to day hoping that it doesn't accelerate and I die. And so what do you guys are going to do? You need to figure out a way that I can get a bone marrow transplant, because they said I would never get one, but I knew they existed. I'd done the research. And she said, hey, we don't do bone marrow transplants. I said, well, somebody does. You need to send me to them. I pay you a lot of money. And so, sure enough, they balked at it. Why do they always balk first, these insurance companies? They just push. So I wrote a letter. I got a friend of mine who's a lawyer to write a letter. And I got a phone call the next day and say, hey, I have a board meeting tonight. I'll let you know what we come up with. Well, they read the letter at the board meeting. They called me the next day and said, we're going to send you to Stanford. So I go up to Stanford. They start treating me just like Kaiser was. But they said, you know what, we're going to search the world to see if we can find maybe a partial match so that you have a chance. Maybe a partial match would work. You don't have any relatives. Maybe somebody out there in the world is a close match for you. You had to have 6 out of 6 antigens for a perfect match. I think today it's now 10 out of 10. They perfected it. 6 out of 6 had to match, or you were not a candidate for a bone marrow transplant. And so they start searching the world. I'm calling every week, anything. I'm taking my blood test, still have it. Fear is rising. Stanford is searching for a match like crazy. And so I'm in no man's land. Nobody can help me. Kaiser can't help me. Stanford's trying, but they aren't succeeding to this point. Now I'm in year 3 and moving into year 4, and I'm thanking God for the years that he gave me, but I'm struggling. And it reminds me that many people that I minister to and talk to, they're now in a season where there is something you need to trust for, and maybe a trust for security, and it's been taken away. Maybe you've always trusted in yourself and your confidence for your security, and somehow that got taken away. Maybe now it's insecurity is trying to dominate. Maybe you've always had the right doctors and the doctors have been taken away. Maybe you've gone through a time where you could always depend on that spouse or that family member or that person at work that's really close to you, or a best friend. But for some reason, God has even isolated you to such a point that that's been taken away. And you don't have anything now to trust in but God. See, the giver of life and the giver of all good things. And you're learning that when everything is taken away from you, that God will always be faithful to you. When everything has been taken away from you, your God will always be faithful to you. Everything was taken away from Elijah. He's up by the river, but God's still taking care of him. And now he's learning what it means to be isolated and dependent on God. It kind of reminds me of the single mom. There was a single mom who was very poor. She lived in an apartment building. The walls were thin. And she would pray every day, God, provide. I don't have enough money for groceries. I'm not going to make it to the end of the month. God, please provide for me. I just pray that you would just miraculously send me some groceries. And she would pray and pray and pray. Well, the guy next door to her can hear her praying, and he's a full atheist. He doesn't believe in any form of God, and it just drove him crazy every day to hear this lady pray that God would bring her groceries. He just thought that was the most stupid thing he'd ever heard in his life. So what does he do? He goes down to the grocery store. He's going to get her. And he brings the groceries. He sets them right in front of her door, knocks on the door, runs to his room, peeks out the door to see what she's going to do. Sure enough, she opens the door and she sees the groceries. She goes, "Oh, God, thank you so much. I'm so thankful. What a blessing. You are a great God." She's going on, thanking and praising God. And the guy bursts out of his room, runs over to her door. She said, "God didn't do that. I did it." She goes, "Oh, God, thank you so much for providing my groceries, and you used the devil to do it." When you don't have anything, God's going to take care of you. When you're going through the struggle and you feel like you're all alone, God's going to take care of you. You see, the interesting thing about all this is God didn't give Elijah 2 days worth of food. He didn't give him a month's worth of food. He didn't give him 3 months worth of food. What did God give him? He gave him enough for the day. Morning and evening, that was it. You see, God wants us to walk and trust him enough for the day. You know, one of the prayers I pray every morning is, "Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for your goodness and your mercy that you said would follow me all of my days. So, Lord, may your goodness and mercy follow me today. May you provide everything I need today, because you told me in the prayer of the Our Father, that in the Lord's Prayer, that I should say, 'Give me this day my daily bread.' So, Lord, meet all of our needs today in the church, in my home, and that's my morning prayer, and then I also intercede for others as well. But God just gives you enough for the day. Some of you are going to learn today, if you're learning or you're hurting or you're afraid, that God will give you enough courage and enough strength to go through the day, and he might just give you enough joy to endure the day. Just today. He doesn't say worry about tomorrow, Jesus said. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just do today. People tell me how stressed out they are for stuff. They say, listen, let's start here. Just do today. Just do today. They say, well, I got all this stuff going on. No, some of this stuff may or may not happen. Let's just do today. And it's almost like I gotta gently whisper and say, just do today. Today's hard. Okay, just do the next hour. You know, and you start paring it down to what you can actually accomplish. Some of you are going to learn today that. God says, I will be your strength today. If you're weak, he said, I'll be your strength today. If you're struggling financially, he said, I will meet your need today. I will give you enough faith for today. I will give you exactly what you need. I will be your daily bread starting today. God was teaching Elijah he's got to depend on him for everything in his life. He's breaking him. He's humbling him. He's teaching him to depend on God every day of his life. And some of you are in a place where you have to depend on God every single day just to get through the day. Sometimes when we get so busy, we get so single-minded, and we get so selfishly minded that God has to say, hey, I'm going to pull you over here for a bit. And I'm going to do something so deep inside of you, it's going to be life-changing. And then that someday after that, he's going to say, I'm going to take you, because of what I've done in you, I'm going to do something through you to touch other people's lives. Sometimes God takes us there. Lastly, as we begin to close here today, I'm okay. I'm trying to beat Coco. I'm okay. The last point is there was a season in Elijah's life now where he learned unconditional obedience. That when God says go east to the river, Kerith River, he goes east. Now when God's going to do something that's going to blow our mind here, because it's been months that Elijah has been by the Kerith River for months. He's been eating and drinking, and he's been doing fine. God's been rebuilding and speaking into his life and kind of what Coco's doing right now. He's refreshing. He's restoring. He is building up his spirit so that he'll have so much more in him so that the Spirit of God will work through him in a fresh way. That's the beauty of time away. See, we get so caught up in the week as pastors, and you do too. We get so caught up, okay, I have to. And then sometimes we blow right through our Sabbath, right? We don't take that one day off a week, and we're just starting to just grind, and we're just grinding and grinding. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Moms, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're grinding through the day with those kids, and I've been watching my daughter. We're here. My daughter lives in Folsom. We're here today because I had scheduled to be here the 25th to the 30th. And then Coco called and said, hey, I need you June 29th. I said, well, I'm up there. This will be great. So I'm up here because my daughter had a baby on Thursday, number 12. We're calling her number 12. Yeah, so we're in celebration mode. We're thankful. We thank God's grace. She's okay. She had a high-risk pregnancy. Everything worked out good. It was 3 out of 4. She had one good pregnancy, and it was the last one. And we helped her make sure it was the last one. And we encouraged her. Please, I can't go through any more of these, and these high-risk things. And so there he is. He's by the brook of water, and what is God doing there? He's rebuilding him, and now something happens. Verse number 7. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. I'll pause there for a minute. Are you kidding me? God, here it's been good. God, this has been good. I'm eating every day. I'm drinking, and you've been sharing with me, and I've been learning and growing, and everything's good, God. But now it's like, what are you doing? God, what's up? What's happening here? How am I going to eat? How am I going to drink? What am I going to do? I'm going to die. And now all of a sudden we're doubting God, and we don't think he can do what he says he can do, and we're working through the dependence thing, but now God throws a curveball. How many of you ever had a curveball thrown at you? And you're like, God, what's up? You know, going and playing golf in the morning and finding out I was going to live for only 2 years from the doctors, the medical community. Nobody's giving me answers. Stanford's not giving me answers. Kaiser couldn't give me any answers. What's up, God? What's up, God? I'm in year 3. I'm in year 4 here. And so what happens to Elijah? Keep going. 8. Then the word of the Lord came. Finally, Lord. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, finally. Verse 9. Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. Direction, guidance. I have directed a widow there to take care of you. God's still taking care of Elijah. He not sure what's up. What am I doing now? But he had learned total dependence now on God. When God says go, you get up and go. God's probably shared things with you, and you were disobedient to that. You didn't do what God said, and God's not going to let you get out of it until you be obedient in the last thing that he told you. See, sometimes God gives instruction, we don't do it, and we're like children. You didn't do it. I had a child in my house once, and I would say, okay, go clean your room, then you can go play with your friends. So he would walk right down the hallway. We had a hallway, went right, and then it went left. And he would walk right down the hallway, left down the hallway, right past his room, out the garage door, and I wouldn't see him all day. I'd walk by his room 3 hours later, and he didn't touch it. So I said, son, next time you ask me to go out to play, you're not going out to play till you clean your room. What's up with that? And so we've had that discussion many times. And he did drive me here this morning, so I guess he's okay. But what's God doing here? Am I hearing you, God? Did I do something wrong? Why is the brook dried up? Why aren't you taking care of me anymore, God? And so then when I went to Stanford, they're doing all my weekly blood tests. They're searching the world for a match. They're not finding anything close. The best they could find was a 4 out of 6, and they said, we won't do it. It's fatal. It's fatal. We'll kill you. Just the medicines alone will kill you. And so they said, we won't do the transplant. Now, if you know a bone marrow transplant, they kill you. But here's what happened. So then I go to Stanford one day, and the physician's assistant comes in. The doctor was out of town, and she says, hey, the doctor gave me full instructions of what I'm to say to you today, and unfortunately, it's not good news. I said, oh. I said, what's happening? She says, well, you have a rare gene. we can't find anything around the world because you got a rare gene. Well, I know God loves me. I'm very unique. She didn't laugh. And so she goes, you have a rare gene, and we're never going to find a match for you. So you just need to probably go home, find out what you need to do before you pass away, because you probably have weeks, months, if not weeks, to live. And so you're basically done. Get your life in order, get your house in order, and prepare to die. Well, I was devastated, obviously. My wife just broke. We're driving home just crying and praying and talking to Jesus and talking to ourselves. And we were just blubbering with each other, just devastated. And so we got back out of fear, and we got back into faith and said, okay, God, what are you doing now? Elijah, what are you doing now, God? You telling me to go and do this? Okay, God, what's next? What are we going to do now? Give us a sign. Give us a road sign. Give us some way to figure out what to do. And she did say, the lady did say, you can call some other institutions around the country and see if they'll consider, working with you and what time you might have left. And so I said, okay, there's a little bit right there, just a cloud the size of a hand, right? And so I call up MD Anderson. They did bone marrow transplants. I called the place down in Southern California. I can't remember the name of it. I called Duke University. We're doing transplants. I called Mayo Clinic. I called Johns Hopkins. And all of those institutions said, no, we cannot take any new patients for a bone marrow transplant. And there was one other place called the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, Washington. And so I called them up, and I never got a phone call back. I waited a week, nothing. I go, okay, forget it. Now what, God? Now what am I going to do, God? Nobody's giving me any open doors. And so shortly after that, maybe a month later, the newspaper, San Jose Mercury, wrote an article, and because we were having bone marrow drives to try to find a match in Gilroy, and with the police department, fire, the city, Rotary clubs, the community at large were just trying to find me a match, there's only a 20% chance that you would ever know somebody that would match you for bone marrow. It's a highly complex DNA match. And a twin is a perfect match. A sibling is what's called a twin is a perfect match. A twin is a perfect match, and everybody else is called a mismatch. And so if you have a 6 out of 6, and you're a sibling, you're a perfect match for your sibling if they ever get a blood disease. If you're a twin, it's a perfect match. You have all kinds of odds to not be rejected by the new DNA in your body. And so, sure enough, I go home. One day, months later, a guy knocked. I got down the road a couple of months. A guy knocks at my front door in my office at the church. We had a parsonage. We had the old church on the corner, and we had a parsonage right next to it, and the parsonage was our office. And so he knocks on the door. We let him in. He says, "Hey," he goes, "you don't know me. I read the article in the Mercury. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm in no man's land. I don't have any answers right now. I'm waiting for God to answer." And he looked at me like, yeah. And I'm waiting for God to give direction and guidance and to bring healing. And he kind of, I go, "Why do you ask?" And he says, "Who have you called?" And I said, boom, 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 boom. He goes, "Where do you want to go?" I go, "I want to go to the Seattle Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center." They were the original pioneers. And the reason they did was because Fred Hutchinson played for the Cincinnati Reds in the 1960s. He was the last player coach of the Cincinnati Reds that played in a World Series game as a player and as a coach. And the next year after the Reds won the World Series, Fred Hutchinson died of leukemia. His brother was a doctor in Seattle, and he was devastated by it. And he said, "I'm going to solve it." So he started learning, how can I solve this problem through bone marrow transplantation? Because German Shepherds all have leukemia. And so he started doing experiments with dogs, and then he started doing experiments on the dying, those that were going to die no matter what, that agreed to enter into a study and an experiment. They were going to die. And so they did it. he slowly perfected it. They got children up to almost 50% in the 1990s after 20 years of transplants. And adults were still no cure. It was like 10% survived a bone marrow transplant for adults. They just didn't have it dialed yet. Well, by the time I got there, they were starting to dial it in a little bit more. And so this guy that knocked on my door, he goes, okay, I'll get back to you. He makes a phone call. It turns out his brother in Chicago is the president of the American Cancer Society that year. It's a 1-year term. He's the president. He goes, okay, I'll get back to you. He calls his brother Miles in Chicago. Miles makes a phone call to Seattle. The next day, I get 4 phone calls from 4 different doctors. And they said, we would like to schedule a consultation with you. I said, oh, thank you. I didn't know how it all happened because this guy didn't tell me. And so I go, okay, great. Well, then the guy shows up and he says, hey, do you got an appointment up there? I go, as a matter of fact, I do. He goes, here. He wrote me a check for plane fare, hotel, and food. And he said, go get checked out. We're going to beat this thing. Now it's we're going to beat this thing. So sure enough, and I really got to talk fast. I'm giving you 9 years of pain in 20 minutes. So sure enough, I went up there, and now when you go through, I moved my whole family up there because I only was given 20% chance to survive, 20%. So I had a 5 out of 6. I didn't have a perfect match, and that 5 out of 6 was unrelated, which means when they put his DNA in my body, I become an enemy, and it attacks me and tries to kill me. That's the bone marrow transplant problem, is you're putting somebody else's DNA in your body, and it says, you're an enemy, you're a disease, I have got to kill you with my killer T cells. And that's what it does. Well, to kill me would have meant to destroy my liver, my kidneys, and my GI tract, and my skin. And so I got the first 3 during transplant. During transplant, they have to destroy every cell in your body. You have no cells, and they're pumping red blood cells in you, and they're pumping platelets in you, but the white blood cells that I was producing were cancerous. That's leukemia, white blood cell disease, and that leukemia was still there. They had to kill the leukemia, so they destroyed my immune system by giving me 7 days of maximum dosages of chemotherapy and 3 days of full body maximum dosages of radiation. I came out of the radiation, I was as red as a lobster. And if my skin would have peeled, I would have died from exposure. And my liver then went toxic. It went up into the 40s. A normal bilirubin count is 1. And it went all the way up to the 40s, so that was going to kill me. They shoved anti-rejection medicine in you, and I blew up to about 220 pounds. I'm normally 160. I blew up to that, and I was an absolute mess. I'm in the hospital for 3 months. I'm in isolation in a bubble. And when they let me, I finally made it through the skin. I made it through the liver. Then they let me out. I had to stay in an apartment for 6 months in Seattle. My children had to be isolated from me. And then my kidneys shut down. They rushed me back in. I'm only 3 minutes from the hospital. They give me what was called a silver bullet. It worked. The kidneys came back. I survived. I went home after 6 months. I was 6 months in isolation. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go back to church. I couldn't work. My wife had to wipe down every piece of food before they gave it to me. She had to wipe the doorknobs. She had to keep everything in a clean area for me. And so finally, I'm able to get out. I start merging back into church, and I'll make this really quick. And I start working again. I'm coming back. I survived. Euphoria, happy, glad, thank you, God. Church is rejoicing. Then I get a cold about 3 months into the year of 2000. And after transplant was in 99, in the month of February. I was out 1 year. Early 2000, I'm working away, I'm going away, I get a cold. So I get a shot of penicillin. I go home. 10 days later, I woke up as red as a lobster. Well, I knew that was wrong because my skin was as red as a lobster and it could have peeled. So what was happening was I was experiencing rejection, and found out why. The Red Cross in South Carolina, my donor was from South Carolina. 13 possible matches were from, 12 of them were from the UK, Scotland, because I'm Scottish descent, and one lived in South Carolina. We went with the South Carolina, and they packed his bone marrow in an ice chest, put it on an airplane, flew it to Seattle, and they put it in my body. And then the battle began. So I get home, I'm starting to re-emerge now. I made it through the first 3 death sentences, and now I'm home, I'm going back to work, I get this shot. Well, the Red Cross in South Carolina didn't let Seattle know. Seattle didn't let Stanford know. Stanford didn't let Kaiser know that the donor was allergic to penicillin. So 8 more months I would battle. I faced GI tract, was bleeding out of my GI tract, rejection. My liver bounced back up into the high 30s this time. And I got a third disease, which was 98% fatal for an immunocompromised person going through a transplant. It's called aspergillus. It's a fungal disease. Most of your AIDS patients died of aspergillus. And so I'm battling for my life again. And I was in a coma for 10 days. After I got checked into the hospital, I lapsed into a coma. And for 10 days, I think it was actually, I'm wrong on that one. It was 3 to 4 weeks. I was in a coma. Every day my wife would come, she'd pray. People were praying. Churches were praying. Pastors were coming by and praying. I didn't even know it. And my wife, finally, they came up and said, listen, we saw the aspergillus in a petri dish. They checked my brain by shoving cameras up here. They checked my endoscopy, and they checked my colonoscopy. They said, we can't see any there in your body, but we see it growing from a whatever they call a petri dish, where we saw it growing, and we took the sample out of your body, and that's in your body. And so 98% you're going to die. My wife hears that. All the doctors walk out of the room. She grabs her Bible. She puts it on my chest, and she says, in the name of Jesus, God, you know what you have for him. You know what you want to do for him. God, we pray for healing. She's pleading with God. About 3 days later, no pun intended, I woke up on Good Friday, 2001. And when I woke up, I started preaching to every person I could get get the ears to listen. And it took me 8 more months to recover from that one incident. And by the grace of God, I was able to recover. I'm here today to proclaim the mighty works of God in your life and in my life. Amen.